by clear and convincing evidence that 25 of the violations were proved. And we were prepared today to make a very difficult decision. And that decision would be whether or not expulsion should be recommended in this case. I can't tell you ultimately what the finding of this committee would have been. We would have listened to the arguments today. We would have debated as a committee. But by her tendering her resignation, it prevents not only this committee from having to make that decision, but prevents this matter from being played out on the floor of the House of Representatives.
Do you feel the ethics process is working?
I do. It may not work as quickly as some people would like. It is a very deliberate process. And look, we want to make sure that when the committee itself, when we make recommendations, when we make findings, that we have all the evidence before us. And so we will continue to look for ways in which we can speed up the process. If leadership wishes to change the ethics process and the fact of additional resources, additional jurisdiction, I think that is a decision for the Speaker and the Minority Leader to make in conjunction with one another. This is an equally divided committee. We try to make this committee as nonpartisan as possible. But if there are reforms that need to be made, we will be receptive to that. But again, that is not for this committee to make. We are bound by the rules. We are going to comply with those rules, but if those rules need to be changed, if there needs to be changes made by leadership to the committee, we would be receptive to that.
Chairman, is this a loophole, though, that members can just resign and then no longer be under investigation? Does that really undermine your work?
I don't believe so. I mean, and I want to speak for Mark, but I believe that the core of what we do is to gather evidence and to make decisions, to then make recommendations to the body. And of course, the most serious recommendation that we can make is the expulsion. Once a member leaves this body, then we no longer have jurisdiction. In this case, we've already presented all the findings. The statement of alleged violation is public. The findings of the Ethics Committee and the 25 allegations that we substantiated has been made public. So the only thing left in this case would have been for us to make a sanctioned recommendation. All the information that we have gathered is now in the public domain. And so, besides having to save her colleagues from making a potential very difficult situation, we've done our job. We've presented the evidence. It's now in the public. And the people of her district, will have to choose a new representative to represent them in Washington. But I don't believe, that by ending the process once an individual resigns, that short circuits ethics. Again, if that's something that leadership wishes to change and they wish to extend the jurisdiction of the Ethics Committee, and they wish for us to have jurisdiction over any matter that occurs, irregardless of whether they're still members or not, the committee would be receptive to that. But that is a leadership decision that needs to be made by the Speaker and the Minority Leader, and then they need to make sure that once that decision is made, we will abide by whatever process or procedure they put in place.
Is that something you recommend, though, for leadership to consider, is having control over matters irrespective of members still Congress or not? Is that a reform you would push for?
I'm not having any conversation with my leadership. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to us continuing to have jurisdiction, particularly in light of very serious allegations, that for us to be able to then possibly inform the public more about the conduct for which the member resigned. And so that's not anything that I oppose, but it's not something that I've had the chance to advocate for you.
The Congresswoman said she was frustrated that the committee was investigating her while she had these pending criminal charges. She didn't want to say anything that could be used against her. Obviously, in the court of law, there's a serious indictment against her. Does that in any way, do you guys think the committee perhaps should have waited? Why move ahead with this while the criminal investigation is going on?
Well, we began before the criminal investigation, and so this matter began well before the criminal investigation. And if the rule is once an individual is indicted, then that stops the ethics process. I don't believe that is the right message that we want to send to members of Congress. That if you've been charged with very serious crimes, and as long as you can delay your trial, that is going to delay the ethics process. I believe we kind of started beginning to set that bar with the Santos matter. where we moved ahead with the Santos investigation during a time in which he was under federal indictment, and that matter actually came to the floor. And so I believe it would be disingenuous for Ms. McCormick to say that this is a change of precedent, because it's not. That change happened last Congress in 2023 with the George Santos matter. But look, people want these matters resolved. They don't want the Ethics Committee to be waiting years. And though it took that long in this case, it was because it was a complex case that required a great deal of investigation. But I would oppose just a blanket continuance of any matter if those individuals are under federal indictment. So I've got it over to my ranking member.
Before you go, I think one thing I want to emphasize is this committee works in a completely bipartisan way. Ethics are more important than our political differences always. And I really want to commend the chairman, and we've had a wonderful, trustful relationship. So we both take a little umbrage to all criticism the committee gets. The rules are designed by the House, include the rules and leadership. If there's opportunities to make it better, I think we both agree, we're open to that. And clearly, at least perspective from the public, there's a lack of trust in this institution. And we've been working very hard to hold people accountable in both parties, that they have a real sacred trust here, and we have to hold them accountable. So somewhere between taking a long time to make sure that we delivered in a deliberative fashion and thoughtful, in this case, with the indictment, we really thought worked through it. So it's a challenge. But for me, I think, like anything, the ethics process, given the current tenor, we need to look at it impartially and see if we can do a better job so we prevent incidents like this.
Were you both prepared to vote to expel Cherfilus-McCormick today? Is that the conclusion you were ready to reach?
I was prepared to listen to the testimony.
Were you aware that she was going to resign before today's meeting?
This is the third resignation in a very short period of time. What message do you think this is all sending to the American people? So many resignations in a short period of time.
What I hope it sends is that, we being the Ethics Committee, we being the body as a whole, that we're going to hold the members accountable. And that members that conduct bad conduct, whatever that conduct may be, we've seen sexual misconduct, we've seen financial misconduct, that those members are going to be held accountable, and that this body is willing to expel members who violate the rules and who bring distrust upon this institution. And I hope that that's what people see. We want individuals to have trust in their elected officials, and I think as members of Congress, we should be held to a higher standard than the general public.
I'll just say there are a lot of people testing norms right now, and not just in this institution, not just in politics. And I think this is the way we as a country should respond, working together to make sure people understand that ethics and trust is paramount to just political differences. It goes beyond.
Any updates on the investigation into Congressman Mills?
It's ongoing. There's an investigative subcommittee that has been impaneled, and we are working through that. Again, that is an allegation that that is an investigation with multiple allegations that we're working through. So I can tell you that I know the investigative subcommittee, which again is equally made of 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, are working diligently to try to bring that matter to a conclusion. So look, Mark and I both have to run. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad she did. She needed to go. Swalwell needed to go. Gonzalez needed to go. We need to uphold basic ethics in the United States Congress. But you know who else needs to uphold ethics is the White House. And you've seen so much corruption. We need to have accountability in this country. And it needs to begin with the Epstein issue. I've been calling for the investigations and prosecutions of the Epstein class. Even the First Lady now is saying that there need to be prosecutions. If we can have prosecutions and accountability in Congress, which is the slowest moving body, how can we not have a single investigation or prosecution when it comes to Epstein?
Just quick. Thank you. Any thoughts about your colleague resigning today?
It's good. I mean, people who have committed corruption or who engaged in alleged rape or sexual assault, they have no place in Congress.
Do you think that the vote would have been there to expel her?
I had said that I was open to voting for it. I mean, I wanted to see the Ethics Committee's recommendation, but, these issues aren't partisan. Thank you.
Y'all got me.
On Corey Mills, are you in favor of, I mean, I have to see how the resolution comes to the floor, if it's even filed. But I mean, yeah, I mean, you're beating women. I don't think that you should be a representative in Congress. Of course, there's a lot of other things that have been brought up. The Ethics Committee has been investigating them. I don't know exactly where they are in theirs, but you know, I think I would have loved to expel Sheila McCormick, but you know, she resigned today, so we don't get the honor of doing that.
What about the idea that they maybe should have, if they are going to try to expel Mills, though, that they
Well, I
should
don't
let
know.
but they should let him go through the entire process before they force a vote on
And
the
that
floor.
may be the case. We'll see where the vote comes, if it even is brought up. So I haven't seen
You
it
think
come to
that
the floor.
He's denied the allegations. Do you not believe him?
I mean, who hasn't denied allegations? Everybody does. So I mean, you have temporary restraining orders. You have body cam footage of stories changing. I don't know. So we'll see if the vote comes up. I'm not going to answer on hypotheticals right now. You know, we had 3 resignations. The swamp is kind of draining itself right now, and I think it's a lot thanks to public pressure and, of course, the Democrats wanting to knife their own. They started this. So thanks to all of you for finally letting one of your own take the heat on
Should
something.
the speaker? Do you think the speaker should call for his resignation
The
too?
speaker won't. So he didn't.
And
he
why?
didn't
And
call
why
for-
is
Are you disappointed by that?
I mean, the speaker didn't call for Tony Gonzalez's resignation. He just wanted him to suspend his campaign. I mean, a woman lit herself on fire. So, no, I don't expect.
Do you think the
to do
speaker
that.
is trying to protect the majority by not calling for the resignation?
It would be the same numbers.
No, I don't agree with that. I mean, the way the process works is, you know, the Ethics Committee did a 2-year investigation. So if the Ethics Committee was going to recommend her expulsion, that's the process. I mean, 2 years is a long time to do a hearing. So I'm glad she resigned. I think she made the right decision. But, you know, had she not done that, I think she would have been expelled tomorrow morning.
And what about the idea here that, Corey Mills, I mean, should this have been set up in a way that they do 1-for-1? Mr. Mills has just said he's not going to resign.
Well, I think Mills's Ethics Committee, that should be sped up. It seems like that's been taking a long time. Look, this took 2 years also. I think that's a long time for the American people. Why is an investigation taking 2 years? So I think one of the things we've learned through this whole process is that there needs to be some sort of changes to how the Ethics Committee works. It needs to be a much faster, much tighter process.
Do you think that Republicans might be accused of trying to protect Mills because they're like, oh, we got one on our majority now that Cherfilus-McCormick is gone?
Listen, there's always going to be politics up here, right? People are always going to make those accusations. But what I would say is if they want to show that those accusations are not true, then they should speed up the process. Thanks, guys.
Well, our next step is we're going to be filing contempt charges. I mean, the reality is that she's under legal subpoena to come into the Oversight Committee. James Comer reiterated that we wanted to hear from her, and the fact that she is now choosing to not even respond to the committee. We've had no contact with her legal team. We don't know who even is her legal team. She's obligated to come in whether she's the Attorney General or not, and so that's what we're focused on, and right now we have prepared contempt charges, of which we're going to be filing here pretty imminently.
What's your reaction to Representative Sheila Cherfilus-McCormick stepping down today, just before House Ethics was about to have their hearing?
Well, I think she did the right thing by resigning. I think that the Congress has to be a place that we hold people to the highest ethical standards, and if we're going to be out here demanding good government and good ethics, that means we have to hold our members to the highest standard. And I'm glad the Ethics Committee, I believe they were going to put out some pretty substantial information and a recommendation, and so she did the right thing by resigning.
Do you think that Congress has an ethics problem following all of these resignations and things that are coming to light?
I think that when you have 4 members, 3 that just resigned in the last, week or so, absolutely we have to do better. And I think members that are here have to hold themselves to the highest standard.
That contempt resolution, will that be something that's privileged on the floor? Are you going to try to put it through committee? How will that work?
I think we're going to be moving it forward here pretty soon, and so I think folks will see how our intention is to obviously get Republican support. There are a few Republicans that are also very concerned and want her to come in, and so I think our goal is just transparency. I mean, we don't want to hold anybody in contempt for no reason, but the fact that she won't come in on a legal subpoena to answer questions about the Epstein files, I think is problematic.
So you try to gain consensus in the committee to.
I think we're trying to get enough folks that this would be a successful motion.
Are you all concerned about the fact that it seems like Democrats are the ones who always have to have their members resign, but Republicans don't kick their own members out on their own volition? Corey Mills is still in place. Tony Gonzalez only resigned after Eric Swalwell did.
Well, I think Corey Mills should take a look at the mirror and really consider what he's going to face in the Ethics Committee and what kind of recommendations are going to come out of there. I think that he has no business being in Congress, and I think that you cannot break the American trust that way. And I think more broadly speaking, what's happening right now with Mr. Swalwell and Mr. Gonzalez is you cannot be abusive to staff this way. You cannot be, it is not acceptable for any member of Congress to have a relationship with staff, to use their power against staff. And so I hope this is a very important moment where people in this building and across other governments understand that it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. And we have to be, in a bipartisan way, be against that. Anything else?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
What was your reaction to the resignation? You know, obviously a lot of work your committee put into this. You know, do you feel like this is a just result in the end?
We lost jurisdiction, and so we were going to have a hearing today on sanctions, but the reality is we did come to the conclusion that she was guilty of some of these crimes. We had enough evidence, and so we were going to hear her side of it, but she did not show up, and she decided to resign instead, so we're moving forward.
Was it your intention to vote in favor of removing her from office?
I wanted to hear what she had to say before rushing to a conclusion on that.
And, you know, does this help the House, you know, obviously not having members to, you know, go and vote against one of their own for her to, you know, potentially read the writing on the wall? Do you think this is the classy move in a way?
It's really up to her. You know, in the end, if you feel like resignation is the best path for you, then you can choose that. But certainly she had the option. She chose this.
This is the third resignation we've seen from Congress in the last week. What message do you think this all sends to the American people?
It's not a good message. I think in the end, Congress is losing the trust of the American people every time something like this happens. And we need to have better rules, clearer rules, and we need to make sure that we enforce those rules well. And certainly the work of the Ethics Committee and the staff was able to uncover some evidence. In other cases, you know, members decided to resign before even having an Ethics Committee investigation. And so that was all very instructive. But certainly the American people want better from Congress.
Do you think that the process is working, given that the congressman resigned, or is the process kind of not working in this case, given the fact that the committee lost jurisdiction?
I think you could argue that since she's no longer in Congress, the process worked in some ways, in that she decided to resign instead of face any consequences that may be coming her way. And certainly the process over the past 2 years was able to uncover a lot of evidence in some ways, but in other ways, it was 2 years. It was a long time. And so, you know, I'd like to see us move faster in the future, and I have a couple of ideas on how we can do that. Thank you.